We throw around the term hero very loosely. We also throw around the term today very loosely, which is Mesiras Nefesh. What does it mean to be Meiser Nefesh? A lot of people talk about this as well. You'll see someone says, oh, this guy, he was Meiser Nefesh. What does it mean? Today he woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning to help some people out. He was Meiser Nefesh. Okay, maybe that is Mesiras Nefesh. But those aren't the yardsticks that we have when we talk about the heroes of the Holocaust. Pirkei Avos teaches us, Hillel tells us, B'makom she'ein ish ishtadel liyos ish. It's very interesting. Hillel doesn't say B'makom she'ein ish tiyeh ish. Doesn't say where there are no leaders, be a leader. It's not possible. You can't tell someone to be a leader. The best that you can ask for is for someone to try. And it wasn't simply what he did in Europe, but throughout the world, there were not people who were standing up for the Kedoshim, who unfortunately were being slaughtered every single day in the Holocaust. Rabbi Weissmandl was not someone who simply worked in Europe and in Slovakia, which we all know, but he was someone who stood up and got the message to the likes of Winston Churchill and President Roosevelt and even the Pope to tell them, this is what's happening, someone has to stop it. He literally bribed people to get the message across, and you know what happened? You know what they did? Absolutely nothing. He was an individual who came up with the first written plan that said, let us bomb the tracks to Auschwitz. If you bomb the tracks to Auschwitz, even if it takes them a month to fix it, that's a month less of people who are going to be killed. And unfortunately, people didn't listen. But he did some incredible things. One of the things that he did was he co-founded the working group with Gissi Fleischman, the very well-known working group that worked to save Jewish lives. They did everything they could. They bribed officials for $50,000. They stopped deportations in Slovakia for 2 years. They saved countless lives. They came up with the very well-known Europa plan. We're depending on the sum for $2 to $3 million. I want you to think about this, Rabbi. For $2 to $3 million, they could have saved 1 million Jewish lives. They could not even get an answer from the major Jewish organizations. One of the major Jewish organizations at the time in the United States of America said, we can't do it. It's illegal to give money to the Germans. How can we give money to the Germans? American law prohibits us from giving money to the Germans, so we can't pay $2 per Jewish life to save Jewish lives. He was someone who literally was Meiser Nefesh. He was on a train to Auschwitz with his family, and to try to spread the word, he literally escaped off the train, he broke a leg, and he did the best that he could to spread the word about what was happening in the world. And it's difficult for those of us, especially the younger generation who are here, to understand. You're talking about a time before internet, before Twitter, before Facebook, before newspapers, or mass circulation. Many people did not know. He was the one who put out the information literally across the world to let the world know about the atrocities that were happening in the Holocaust. And that is really why we're here today. We're here today to honor the memory of an incredible Talmud Chacham, a Rosh Yeshiva, someone who, despite the fact that his heart was literally broken, you talk about Meiser Nefesh, he had a heart attack. As a result, he came back to America. He never recovered from his ailments as a result of what he saw and what he experienced in the Holocaust. And he came back, and unfortunately, he died at a very young age from a heart attack. And that was Rabbi Weissmandl. But he came back, he didn't give up. Other people would have said there's nothing to do. He came back, he rebuilt, he got remarried, he had a mishpacha, many of whom are actually their children and descendants who are here today. He built the yeshiva, the Nitra yeshiva, very well-known yeshiva in Mount Kisco with B'Shalom Moshe Unger, and had literally many Talmidim throughout Klal Yisrael, who he had a hashpon. He wrote sfarim that were incredibly well recognized, and he is someone who really we recognize for a unique, extraordinary contribution. When the world was silent, he was someone who wasn't a diplomat, he wasn't a politician, he wasn't an official. He stood up and he made a difference on behalf of Klal Yisrael, and that's why we're here today.
As a Nitra Talmud myself, and as a nephew of one of his greatest Talmidim, Rabbi Ruchan Spitz, Zeichet Tzadik Avruch, whose Best Medish is 1 block away, used to dedicate once a year, 1 Perik Shir, used to dedicate this entirely to talk about the Holocaust, the remembrance of the Holocaust. He once said, and he said a few times, that Rochaber once told him when he was learning in the Nitra Yeshiva, he said, you will one day be a Rov, and you will talk and you will talk, and you will give drushas. So I ask you, when you speak, always remember to speak about the Holocaust. It should not be forgotten. So I'm very thankful, on behalf of the community board, we're very thankful that the councilman worked on this, and we finally get to see it unveiled. 50th Street will now be Rabbi Weissmandl Way.
Thank you, Councilman Greenfield, for your working tirelessly on renaming the dedication of this street in honor of Rabbi Weissmandl, who worked so hard to save people during the Holocaust. This will continue, this renaming will continue to educate today's generation, the younger generation, about the Holocaust. On behalf of the mayor, I would like to wish everyone a Freilichen Chanukah.
Rabbi Weissmandl Way. However, under city regulations, you pick one sign. And so there's two reasons why we pick 16th Avenue and 50th Street. The first is, it is literally the center of Borough Park. It is the most strategic area. But also, the second and equally important reason is that the Kleiman Holocaust Museum is being built right across the street. And this is a unique project where this is a project where there are, quite frankly, quite a few Holocaust museums. So one could obviously ask, what more can you add to the Holocaust Museum experience? And the answer is, there does not exist a Holocaust museum that looks at it from a Torah hashkafa. And this will be the first museum in the world that will be a Holocaust museum from the Torah community, to look at it from our hashkafa and to commemorate and to recall the events that happened of the Holocaust. And
David mentioned on a personal note of what Nitra meant to him, and I think it may have been possible that in fact my father, Zechronel Livracha, may have eaten at his family's table in Nitra. Because on this personal note, it has very special meaning to my family and I also today. As my father, Avram Kleinman, Zechronel Livracha, was a Talmud of Nitra Yeshiva in Europe. He was very close to the Nitra Rav, whose Sefer, Nois Desha, which I'm holding over here, this is my father's Sefer, was always present at the Shabbos and Yom Tov table for my father to learn and quote from. He learned B'chavrusa with the Nitra Rav's son and with Rav Yaina Forst. And of course, he knew Rav Michal Ber, Zechronim Livracha. My father was amongst the Bachrim who were at Nitra till the end, with the distinction that it was the last yeshiva in Europe to close. He was then enslaved in the Munketaber, went through Mauthausen and Gunskirch concentration camps, and finally on the death march. He always maintained his kesher with Rav Michal Ber when he reestablished Nitra here in Mankisko. My family grew up with the stories of the glorious days that my father spent as a Bacher in Nitra, and the very dark days when the clouds of war, death, and destruction rained down upon European Jewry. I am proud, as founder and president of KHEC, that our museum, education center, and archival collections will be located adjacent to the street named for Rav Weissmandl. And I welcome the world to come to Brooklyn, to Rav Weissmandl Way, to learn more about this legendary, heroic figure by visiting our center. Thank you.
When I was a bocher, 6 o'clock in the morning, I was woken up, and Bechorba has his first child. So I have to cry when I remember that. I happen to have the privilege to be a very close Talmud, disciple in Bechorba Zecher Tzadik V'Rucha. He, especially, I spent a lot of time with him because he was very sick in the last 10 years. And he sometimes spent hours in his bedroom. And they asked me to go up to him to learn with him. He couldn't hold a sefer, and we had long hours talking to each other. I could tell you, he was a hero, and he was a genius of century, or maybe more. He has tremendous knowledge, the Torah Gdoisha. He know every part of the Torah, whichever they ask him. I mean, I could tell you stories. He was there, the biggest goinim, and he was always mefarprim with them. And beside that, he was a genius in other scientific things. He was a mathematician before they had the computer. and he was able to figure out things which today you need a real computer. He knew even astronomy. I remember one late night I was sitting in this Medrash with other Bucher. At 1 o'clock, who comes in 1 a.m.? Bechor Ber comes outside. You will see this side of the sky, on this side of the sky, this way going to fall a star, this way going to move. It was unbelievable.
Weissmandl Way meint auch der Weg für Rabbi Weissmandl. Es hat nicht gelost beim Niche, nicht kein Tugend, nicht keine Nacht. Beim Messias Nefesh Mamisch. Also immer der Massel gewesen, tausende jüdische Kinder, viel mehr wie geschätzt in der Welt, direkt oder indirekt.
Today is Hanukkah, and we talk about Alanissim, Al-Pirkam, Al-Virus, Al-Shir, Al-Mulchumas. And at that time, when Rabbi Mechul Bear was the Chashmonui Abunaf, nobody stood up and everybody said, how can you do something? Rabbi B'yat Ma'atim. There's nothing what could be done. We needed that Chashmonui Abunaf. Ab Mesiris Nefesh, Ayid was hat gemeint totally Shem Shemayim, and he made the difference.
We were trying to find out exactly how many lives did Reb Michal Ber save. And everywhere we went, we had different information. So I remember I called Mrs. Ruth Lichtenstein, a project witness, and I said, can you give us an answer? You obviously do great work in this field, in the community. Can you give us a specific answer on how many lives were saved? Because we want to submit it. And she told me exactly what Rabbi Niederman just said, which is there are no exact numbers, because we know for sure there were tens of thousands of lives, but we can't exactly be sure because the influence that Reb Michal Ber had was so vast that it really is countless amounts of lives that were saved. Join us, please. Please join us. Please join us. Thank you. Okay, Rabbi Weissmandl, we're pulling out this way. Right over here. We're going to pull it this way, okay? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Slowly. There we go.